Yes.
Now, beyond that, we don't have certainty as to when it will happen, but because we know that the confidence crash will occur, at some point, the paper dollar that you have in your hand now in your wallet is going to be worthless probably down to a point of zero. And that will also be true of all of the digital dollars. So if you had a lot of digital dollars, I don't know what you would do. But for regular humans like us with little digital dollars, it makes sense to invest in things like food and other supplies.
That's all tied into the same system, the digital versus paper currency, pretty much. It's all controlled at the same source.
Well, actually, yes, in a broad sense. However, we also have to acknowledge that there's an actual problem with our paper currency system, and it is intruding into the larger digital system in the sense that there's so many counterfeit $100 bills out there that they're simply not accepted in international trade anymore. Now, it's less of an issue now because the confidence in the dollar has shredded to the point where you could, for instance, not use a dollar in Europe. And, in 1994, you could hand over a dollar and they would take it no problem at all. In 2004, there were maybe a few countries that were starting to get real serious about only taking euros, and now no one will accept the dollar in normal cross-counter kind of trades. That is to say, buying stuff on a street or going into a store. Same thing is true of India. In the early 90s, you could use dollars throughout the country, and now you have to do it in local currency only. So the confidence rejection on that is going to cause real problems for us here in the U.S., and our only issue is, will we be caught by surprise as it occurs suddenly, or will it be a gradual sort of thing building up to a point that we'll all be able to see, oh yes, next week sometime or the week thereafter, it'll just get so bad that, things will collapse.
Yeah.
It's going to be dependent, I think, on how the political minions and the others nominally in charge in the U.S. decide they want to play out the crises. So the issue for us will be, is just sitting here, not being involved in the political process or any of that, will be how the powers that be at a local political minion level, Obama on downward, will react to the unraveling of the confidence in the dollar. Will they be in a deer in the headlights mode, running around, flapping their gums, absolutely useless, or will there be some attempt to steer it into a longer degradation and not allow it to happen quickly?
Yes.
If it's going to happen quickly, we may indeed get into the position of the shutdown of the banks. Now, what's really curious, of course, in our lockdown language, bear in mind that our predictions are that certain language will appear in the mainstream press. And then from that, we infer that the language is going to be written about events, and so we make predictions about events. Mm-hmm. So we're making a prediction or a forecast that the dollar's in trouble and that there's going to be some crises here, and that some of the crises will involve the language of lockdown, which is our highest level of archetype relating to the 1025 and onward problems with the dollar.
Yes.
And the curious part right now is that over the past few days, more and more banks are reporting, in essence, voluntary shutdowns coincident with our 1025 period onward. In other words, I've seen a half a dozen people have sent me notices that they've received from their banks that for whatever reason from the 26th until the 31st or something, they're going to be redoing their computer systems, and you may have issues getting at your account, and they're giving you a heads up on that.
Yeah.
I've never received anything like that from any of my banks, so that alone is suspicious. But beyond that, just the sheer number of those showing up is starting to make an impact on the language. So we're starting to see some of the maturation of the lockdown language, even in advance of the event itself, even during this period of the release language. Make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's pretty apparent to most people, I think, that something definitely is in the works. The dollar is almost worthless these days. I've even been reading reports that some of the oil-producing countries are not wanting to accept our dollars anymore as far as a trade currency for oil. So basically what I'm getting is that that's going to leave us at a place with gold and silver, and I've also seen questions coming through about the gold and silver. I mean, how much value will it have? Will we end up having to go into kind of a barter and trade system of operation?
Probably both are true, that there will be a lot of value in gold and silver, but basically it'll be at a barter or a trade system level. I suspect everything will degrade down to some form of, let's call it a gray market, that is probably going to be similar to the Argentine experience. And you're quite correct about the oil-producing countries not wanting to accept the dollar. And it's not really an issue of wanting to accept. We have to really be careful about that, because that may be true of like any of the members of the King Saud family in Saudi Arabia, what we call Saudi Arabia. But we have to realize that they, to a certain extent, were coerced a while back, say 30 or 40 years ago, no, even longer than that, 50, 60 years ago, into accepting the dollar as the currency for which oil could be sold. There was this deal made with King Saud way back when, that he would only sell oil in petrodollars in exchange for the U.S. essentially giving him lots of money and building all kinds of stuff in his country. And so that led us to the dominance of the Anglo-Sphere Empire through the petrodollar issue. And curiously, we find that in the our previous dealings with what we call Iran or Persia, they in fact had a democratic republic that was giving us issues in the late 40s, early 50s, because they didn't want to sell their oil to us in dollars. They just wanted to have an open market and sell their oil to whoever in whatever they could get for it. And we, by that I mean the British government and their stooges, the American government, didn't like it very much. So in 1953, the British government paid the CIA the staggering sum at the time of $1 million plus expenses to go on in and overthrow the democratically elected government of Iran, which they did. They did a real good job. And they replaced it with the Shah, and we have that history from that point on. So to a certain extent, it's not that the Arab countries or oil-producing countries don't want to accept the dollar. It's that our karmic history is coming back to get us. Instant karma is going to get us here, because we've been the bad guys. We've been altering the markets. I don't mean we personally, but our political elites and the rulers have been out there screwing the markets over wherever they could. They've been destabilizing governments, seizing property, taking resources right and left, and basically to hell with the common person.
Exactly.
And so now we cannot be surprised when, in the point of our weakness of our currency, all of our supposed or all of our former clients, euphemism there from the IMF and the World Bank, are actually just kind of a little bit happy about the whole situation and can't wait for a further sign of weakness, because they don't like the take our dollars or we'll bomb you into the Stone Age kind of a business approach.
Yeah. Now, see, one thing that comes to my mind also is the potential as a control mechanism using the dollar. If they crash our dollar, which is our only, as individuals, is our only source of trading and purchasing right now, that's going to give them quite a bit of control over the populace, don't you think? If they control our assets and our food distribution and whatnot, do you think that's going to be a factor?
That certainly is a tool that can be used, but it's not 100%. We need to really clarify our thinking about that. Right now, there's trillions, or not trillions, but certainly billions of dollars of trade that goes on in the U.S. that don't involve dollar units at all. Okay. And so there's already a gray and black market barter system that probably is easily 12 to somewhere over 12% of our gross national product, and it's all done at the barter level. And usually these are what we would consider to be the illegal economies, but nonetheless, that's been getting a broader and broader base for our regular economy. So you're quite correct. There might be some level of control there, but of course, it's an interesting sort of a tool. It's kind of like a nuclear weapon in the sense that it's a great threat, but the minute you use it, from that point on, it's absolutely useless. In this case, if they, meaning the political elite, decided they wanted to control the U.S. populace, and they were going to do it through a crash of the dollar, bear in mind that from that point on, everything is uncertain. And we go back to, what's the guy's name? Art of War, Sun Tzu. When no battle plan survives the first contact with the enemy. In this case, the minute the dollar crashes, the creativity of the populace is released, and it will be very hard to put that creativity back into a control bottle of, say, an Amaro or some other currency or something along those lines. And I kid you not, if they introduce the Amaro by dictator fiat, they are going to run into a situation where maybe they'll come out and say that 5 Amaros equal an ounce of silver, and I would be willing to place bets now using the common currency of humans, which is peach pie or something, that the Amaro would rapidly go to something on the order of maybe 500 or 600 Amaros to an ounce of silver, just on the confidence level alone.
See, one thing I've been thinking about a lot is the potential for digital currency. Like if they were to put everything on digital format, would give them complete control